I'm Aryeh Schwartz along with my co-host Gabe Ibrahim, and welcome to the Winsidr show where it's all about the W. Today is free agency signing day 1. There's been a ton of movement today, being the first day that players could actually sign with new teams or their respective teams. We're going to recap it all. We were breaking a lot of news today. I'm sure everyone is exhausted. I'm sure everyone is energized. I only had one cup of coffee today, but I feel like I had 1,000. Gabe, how you doing?
I'm dying out here, man. There's that a meme of like when you have coffee, but all it does is raise your heart rate, and you don't get any more energy. That's where I'm at. Except it's every tweet saying something about a free agent or their signing or how many years they've signed for or how much money they've made. Every single one of those tweet it makes my heart race, but I have no more energy because I'm dead. It's been such a long day. But we're gonna go through this podcast, baby. We're gonna find that energy.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Well, let's start off on probably one of the more shocking moves, I think, for the standard WNBA fan. Kristi Tolliver is going back to Cali. She's going back to LA, where she's won a ring before. I believe she spent 7 seasons there. And a huge twist. I mean, we had Coach T on the pod last week, talked about this. He did mention they were still in negotiations with her and kind of hinted that possibly something was going on. Because he was very firm to say Emma and EDD are coming back, no question. But with her, there was some hesitation, which might have tipped off some people. Definitely wasn't like an obvious tip off, but just to be quite blunt, with the moves that LA made today, I am scared to high heavens of the LA Sparks 2020 roster. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is I'm really, really sad. I mean, anyone who listens to this podcast and listened to us during the Mystics finals run and really throughout the season knows how much I love Kristi Tolliver as a basketball player. She to me brings everything that I want as a fan. You know, she is a great player. She's a great shooter. She does amazing things. She has like the world's smallest step back that actually creates space and allows her to get off shots, and but she's also reckless. And it's that feeling in basketball I think we all try to get to, where it's like anything can happen with this player, good or bad. And the crazy part about Kristi Tolliver is that she's a coach, and she has a coach's mind, and she's a really, really smart basketball player, but she still does stuff that is just reckless at times. And it made me fall in love with her game, just watching her in LA, obviously before, but really when she came to DC and I got to see her on a regular basis, going to watch her. I love watching her. So I just on like a personal level, I'm gonna really miss her. But I will still stand for her on this podcast, and I will never ever let anybody, including you or Rachel, tell me that otherwise about Kristi Tolliver's skills. But she's a great player, and her fit on the Sparks is going to be tremendous. I think the moves like they made today between her and Brittany Sykes, which we'll get to later, it really solidifies them as, I don't know, probably a top 2 contender. I still love Seattle's team. I think they're very complete, but with Kristi Tolliver, I mean, this team has everything you could possibly want, and they have depth as well. So, for me, I think the shooting is really going to fit in. I think that she can play on ball and off ball. I think they're one of the places I was questioning the Sparks was at backup point guard. I think Kristi can play backup point guard. I don't think that's her best use, but she'll start at shooting guard and play backup point guard, and then you have so much flexibility to play against any team, any style that they're going to throw at you. The Sparks now have the flexibility to really beat those teams. So I'm really happy for Kristi. She got that 3-year deal, fully protected, and she's going to be in LA. And actually, I want to read a quote from Coach T in the Washington Post, by Ava. The article's by Ava Wallace, who's fantastic. You should be following her on Twitter and reading her. But this is what Coach T had to say about Christie's contract negotiations. So his quote is, we were basically offering the same contract that she was offered somewhere else. The difference ended up being the last year on the contract, the third year. I think that there's a couple realities at play here with the new collective bargaining agreement that are the biggest factors. One is that we have 4 or 5 other players that are going to become free agents over the next 2 years, and we need to make sure that when those things occurred, that we could keep as many of our good young players here on the team. He said he was sad that Christie's leaving. I wish we could have kept that group together, but she had to make a decision she was comfortable with for the long term. For me, that is a little weird because the year that the Mystics really need space is actually next year in 2021 when Latoya Sanders, Ariel Powers, Tiana Hawkins, Natasha Cloud, all those people are coming up for a contract, for a new contract. And then in 2021, Ariel Atkins, after the 2021 season, Ariel Atkins will be up for a new contract. So, it didn't make sense to me that it was necessarily the third year, but I get what he's saying. They couldn't tie up their long-term space just to Christy Tolliver and, kind of forego the rest of that. So I understand that. I understand the business aspect of it. So for the Mystics, they'll probably be okay. They're going to have to figure out a way to replace Tolliver. I don't know if that's going to come on the roster or if they're going to have to go make deals. But really, I think the focus today should be on her going to the Sparks and what a great move it is for both the Sparks and Christy Tolliver.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to get a little bit more into the Sparks lineup, but that Sparks starting 5, and then you look at, almost to a point where you can just give like a line off the bench, like a hockey line. That is a scary, scary roster. They really have the ability to play a variety of different styles, like you said. And I mean, look, free agency day one, I think they went from a team that, some might argue are a contender, but I think it would be an argument to pretty much a foregone conclusion that they are a contender. I think a lot of people try to don that onto them after the whole Shanae Gumake trade last season, but I think the moves that they made this season were much more well played, much more timed out, and really kind of fills holes that they had on this roster versus kind of solidifying positions that they weren't necessarily in a huge hunt for. Any final thoughts on Christie to LA, Gabe?
No, I think we're going to talk about the rest of my thoughts when we talk about Angel. But I think just to get it out there, let's talk about what the Mystics, the Sparks starting lineup could be. It would be, so we're starting at Chelsea Gray, who has not yet signed, but she will. She's a restricted free agent, so she's not going anywhere. Starting point guard is Chelsea Gray. Starting 2 guard is Christy Tolliver. The starting a small forward will be Brittany Sykes. The starting power forward is just, Candace Parker. Who cares? And then the starting center is Nneka Ogwumike. And then you have Raquana Williams, Chinea Ogwumike coming off the bench, who are 2 players who have made the All-Star team. And then you have Sydney Weiss and Marina Mayberry, who to me are two really interesting young prospects. And then you have Maria Vadiva coming off the bench as a backup center who has showed amazing abilities out there in Russia. So this team is stacked on 1 and 2. They're 2 deep here with a stacked roster. So just really, really great job by the what I'm calling the ghost GM in LA, even though it's actually Michael Fisher and Derek Fisher who have done a tremendous job. I mean, I made a lot of fun of LA. I'm eating a lot of crow today. They did a great job. Good for them.
Yeah, no, I great, and that lineup is amazing. Something to keep your eye on though is Alexis Jones. I mean, obviously she was left out of that breakdown of the roster. I think she might end up being the odd woman out. Would I be completely shocked if I saw a couple small level moves, maybe an Alexis Jones for a draft pick, maybe a Gulich and a Jones for a draft pick, something like that? I would not be shocked to see LA do a few more moves just to solidify some positions coming off the bench. But that starting 5 is scary. It's scary when, the only player on your starting 5 who hasn't ever been in discussion as far as like a big time award is Brittany Sykes, who's, in my opinion, one of the more underrated players in this league. Didn't have the greatest season last year, but she just fits this roster so well and really fills some needs that this team had. So yeah, but we'll speak about them in a moment. Let's talk, or you know what? Forget it. let's talk about that trade. Can we talk about that trade?
But yeah, I mean, this is our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
All right, so we're going to do that. As we reported, as we broke earlier today, the Atlanta Dream and the LA Sparks joined forces for a trade. Maria Gulic, and along with Brittany Sykes for... Who's it for, man?
Kalani Brown.
There you go. Now, when you saw this trade, when we announced it, and obviously we were in discussions, and we've discussed this quite often, once we found out about this, but what was your thought? What do you think the sides of this trade are?
Well, again, from the Sparks perspective, I think it's amazing. I mean, I think I'm a little bit lower on Kalani Brown than most people. She's obviously a great college player. She is she's big, can't teach size. I think she is gonna develop into a nice player. I'm not really sure where her ceiling is. She's probably just a starting caliber center is her ceiling. I'm not sure she's an all-star caliber, but she's going to go to Atlanta and she's going to learn from Elizabeth Williams. She's going to back up there and hopefully grow up. However, at this point, I'm not as high on Kalani Brown as everyone else is. And I think Brittany Sykes, like you mentioned, is one of the most underrated players in this league. She slashes to the basket really well. She can play on ball, off ball. She had a terrible shooting year last year, but that seemed to be more of an aberration than what will become her new normal, because that entire Atlanta offense was terrible last year. I mean, no shade to that. Well, actually, I guess that is shade to them. I think they'll get better this year. But last year their whole team was bad at shooting, and it just seemed like they just needed to get out of that situation. But for Sykes, I think she's going to get back. She's going to shoot better. She's still going to be slashing. She's still going to be getting rebounds. She provides good defense. She's not someone who's a shutdown defender, but she has quick feet and she's sturdy. So she can kind of fill the gap for smaller wings who maybe Candace Parker or Chinea Gumake would have trouble with. And I think she's going to be able to be a really good... She'll start, but I'm not sure she'll finish games. I think whoever's going to finish is kind of based on the situation between her and Chinea. And I think they really complement each other well. They just really do different things. So to me, just getting Brittany Sykes is amazing. You throw in Marie Gulic, who I really like because she's a versatile center. Apparently everyone else is a little lower on her than I am, but she's a versatile center, and they got her for free. They got her for nothing. So yeah, great move on the Sparks end as far as both getting a talented player that fills a need for them, and from an asset perspective of getting Marie Gulic as an asset. She may not be on the roster when the season starts. I mean, she can be there. She'd be like their third center. Yeah, probably third center, depending on
arguably possibly fourth.
Yeah, it depends on who else they have. So she may not be on the roster, but you still got her, and you still get to have a look at her, and she can play in the WNBA because she did last year. And so they got that for free, and then they got. I think if you just look at this trade, and if it was just Brittany Sykes for Kalani Brown, I'd still say the Sparks win. So to me, it is a tremendous trade for the Sparks. For the Dream, I'm a little concerned about it. I think, again, the asset play was bad. I don't know why you give up Marie Gulic for nothing. I don't know why, how much you're going to value Kalani Brown when you have Elizabeth Williams. And yes, Elizabeth Williams is expiring next year, but I would think you want her back, right? I'm not crazy here. I think Elizabeth Williams is going to be good for more years. What are your thoughts?
My thing with Elizabeth, I've never been the biggest fan of her style. I think she's kind of she's a great defender in the paint, but in my opinion, lacks a little bit offensively in that regard. I think, look, I mean, Rachel's too busy working the phones tonight to join us for this episode.
Cracking that Rolodex.
Oh yeah. That was my sound effects, not a plugin. But we've talked about this a lot. It's very clear, and we have sources telling us that Atlanta really wants to reshape this roster. So I like the move because you're freeing up a little bit of roster space on this, and they're clearly trying to change they want to change this roster. I mean, I'm saying this 5 billion different ways. They want to change this roster. So I like what they're doing. I agree with you that, I think, all right, I'll put it this way. I think Sykes and Gulich for Kalani is arguably a same level trade. The difference for me that makes me say that LA really won this one, at least in my opinion right now, I think we always talk about this. You have to give it time and then reevaluate it. But the reason that I think that they win this one today is because Sykes immediately plugs into a starter's role and fills a need that this team truly, truly needs. She can get to the free throw line, she can slash, she can score, and she's fast. And that's something that they need on this team. As opposed to Kalani, it's just like, okay, yeah, top talent. She was a steal for the Sparks to get her at that position last draft. But does it fill the same void that is being filled on the other end of the trade? I just don't think so. That being said, I would love to see her blossom in this new team and possibly be a starter in years to come. But that's just my take.
Well, and for Atlanta though, I think this opens up a need. In the same way that it closes a need for LA, it opens up a need for Atlanta in that they don't really have. They're missing a lot of ball handling. They were already missing a backup point guard on this team. Mate Cazorla, she can play and she's probably good, but I'm not sure how much I want to trust someone that I've only seen play for a year and not really have a great year. It opens up some roster spots, like you said. So right now they are at, counting up the players, that is, they are at 9 players. So they have 9 players on the roster. They could let go of Alina Coates. And that's just a cap hold, so they could let her go. And then they'll have the 4th pick overall, so that'll be nice. But another big problem with this, and this is just like a me thing, but when you're negotiating, you could have asked for one of LA's second round picks. They can't keep them. They will literally not be able to keep one or both of those second round picks on their roster. You could have just asked them, hey, give us a second round pick for Gulich. And, they may have said, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. But you just say, hey, look, you can't keep it. And it's going to balance the scales for us to take on, for you guys to get the better deal. So you take on that second round pick, and now you have a second round pick to work with, either in trades or, to actually use in the draft and get a look at someone. So, I just think it's kind of a failure of negotiation. I don't think it's going to end up being a very big deal, especially if this team is planning on rebuilding, which they may be. I think this may signal that they may be, thinking about the future, thinking about a rebuild. And then we're going to have some serious discussions about, is Renee Montgomery going somewhere? Is, Jessica Breland going somewhere? Is Elizabeth Williams going somewhere? Is Tiffany Hayes going somewhere? So we're going to have to see what happens with the rest of these Atlanta moves. But at least to me, it signals that, 1, they wanted a lot of change, like you mentioned. And 2, they may want to hit the reset button on this.
Yeah, no, I completely hear you on that. And it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. Also is important to note that they did put out an offer sheet for Tiffany Mitchell. It'll be interesting to see if Indiana matches that. We'll see. And I believe, I don't know, I haven't checked the new CBA on this, but last time on the old CBA, you had 4 days to match. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's talk about...
You have 4 days to match again.
Sweet. Let's talk about one of the biggest names mentioned today, Angel McCoughtry, signs with the Las Vegas Aces. Now, a lot of people were talking, she might go to LA, she might go to Las Vegas. I know from speaking to people with knowledge on the fact, it boiled down to a few things. One, Angel did not, I know we talked about it a lot, but Angel did not want to sign a 1-year contract. She didn't want to start hopping around from city to city, from team to team. That's not what she wants to do at this point in her career. She was looking for some stability somewhat. Obviously, as we reported, it's a 2-year contract. She wants some stability, and I can't blame her on the move, guaranteed contract with stability for 2 years. I think it's a great move for her. But talk to me from the flip side. Talk to me about the team and what that does for the team in your mind, Gabe.
So for Vegas with Angel McCoughtry, on the 2-year deal, it is not. It doesn't appear that it's going to be too hampering to their future needs. It'll depend on what happens with Liz Cambage. I'm expecting her that she may take a 1-year deal But like we're going to talk about with Jonquel Jones, it could be potentially true that a 2-year deal makes more sense for Liz Cambage, which would actually time her up with Angel McCoughtry. But so we need to see what happens with her. But really, when their books, their people, their players that they're going to need to pay, Asia Wilson is coming up after the 2021 season. Dearica Hamby is coming up after the 2021 season. Kayla McBride and Kelsey Plum are both expiring after this season. But just having Angel on the max and even potentially having Liz Cambage on the max, you could probably still fit them in. You could probably still fit those two players in if you want to keep them going forward. I think Kelsey Plum, they will definitely be able to keep her in because she'll be restricted next year. So a 2-year deal is actually retain some flexibility for Vegas. And like you mentioned, for Angel, I think getting that stability for 2 years, locking it in, and it's fully protected, which is also, as you mentioned, a huge deal for her. It just really strikes me as a great deal for both sides. However, and this is something that I think we all kind of keyed in on once Rachel reported that it was that Vegas and LA were kind of emerging as the front runners for Angel, is the spacing. I'm very concerned about the fit with Cambage, Wilson, Hamby, and McCoughtry. All those players really love to get to the rim and really love to play in the post and really love to slash. So it's going to be hard to find space for all of them to work. And I think it's going to be really a challenge for Bill Laimbeer to do this. Now, Bill last year, to his credit, did figure out a way to do this. He did figure out how to, smash together all these bigs and create a very different sort of offense from what we're seeing in the rest of basketball. So I think it'll work out. I'm just concerned about the diminishing returns. I'm also concerned about her health and conditioning, because we saw her play with Dynamo Curse and it was kind of bad. But every time we see her, she kind of is getting a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit more like the Angel we're used to. So I'm assuming that she's going to be back to form, and I don't think Vegas does this without seeing her medicals and seeing her conditioning and seeing how she's doing rehab and thinking that she will also be okay. So those are my two big concerns: is spacing and conditioning / rehab for Angel. But the 2-year deal works out well, and it'll really depend on what happens with Liz Cambage.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said there. When we learned about this, I just said, "Oh, Bill's just doubling down on his style right now." I think a lot of people assumed or thought, okay, is he going to try and find some more spacing, some more behind the arc shooting? But no, he just doubled down and said, "Hey, this is what worked last year. This is what we're good at, and we're just going to stack the box and try and go for it." Obviously, I agree with you. I'm concerned about her health. I've been watching those Dynamo games. Looks like a lot of cherry picking. And I think some of those highlight reels are a little bit misleading. But then again, this is Angel McCoughtry. She won 2 gold medals, led the the Atlanta Dream. Really? Too many teams. The Atlanta Dream to the WNBA Finals 4 times, and she really had that team on her back. So I think it's going to be much more about her accepting a new role in this team. And that will be kind of the biggest barrier that they're going to have, besides her health and the spacing, like you talked about.
Let's, and then we're bearing the lead though. Like, they just got one of the best players in WNBA history.
Yeah.
So you just that's Bill's plan. We're gonna get people, and then we'll just figure it out later. And it's worked. So I'm not gonna sit here and say it won't work. I'm concerned about it, but I think I believe in Bill to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Let's talk about the most obvious move of the day. Jonquel Jones re-signs with the Connecticut Sun. I mean, obvious move. MVP candidate this past season. Will likely be an MVP candidate this coming season. I know a lot of people are probably going to guesstimate that she will be. I open shut case for me if you're talking to me about what's going on with her. Give me some insight on that.
Well, so today it was a little bit weird today with her. So Jonquel's 26, so yeah, she's got a lot of years as an MVP candidate ahead of her. But she is, so originally it was reported that she was going to get a 4-year deal, which, I kind of jumped all over because I was like, that's really not good for her. That gives up so much flexibility. It locks her in at a rate that is not, it's not the maximum she could get, because this year she's only as a restricted free agent with 4 years of experience, she could only get the $185,000 max. So she was locking in at, when we first heard about this, to 4 years at a much lower rate and giving the team a discount. But really, that discount, it matters more for her than the team, because it's only a few. It's like 30. I think it's $95,000 over the course of 4 years. But still, she's on the max. All right, but then it came out later that's actually a 2-year deal. So at the 2-year deal at the max, that's actually a fantastic deal for Jonquel Jones. And it's actually better than what I had pitched as her best option, which was a 1-year deal. I thought she'd get a 1-year deal, come back out on the market next year and get the Supermax that would extend her through 5 years. But actually 2 years gives her more flexibility, because now she's locked in for 2 years. So if something catastrophic happens, she's got 2 years of big paydays coming at her. Then on top of that, next year is when the Suns books are completely clean. At this point, the only player that is under contract for 2021 is Jonquel Jones. So they can completely clean house. They can change their direction on a moment's notice if they don't like what happens this season, and if Jonquel doesn't like what happens this season. And then on top of that, she has the flexibility of asking for an extension after next season. So going in the 2021 offseason, she can actually get an extension to that Supermax. I'm like 85% sure that is true. That's my interpretation of the salary cap. So she has so much flexibility here, and I think she did a great job in this negotiation. So I'm going to apologize for my early criticism of it, because we didn't have the facts right. And now that we got the facts correct, this is a great deal for Jonquel. She's going to get her whole bag. I think this gives her the perfect amount of stability, flexibility, while also letting the team retain their flexibility to keep the team together next year. If they come to Jonquel and say, "Hey, look, we're going to have to spend some money next year. Can you stay on your contract?" I think she'll be fine. So it's actually the best deal for both sides, and I think Curt Miller and company did a great job. They didn't let her get to restricted free agency. They didn't make her get a offer sheet, which has often annoyed players, and they got her on a 2-year contract anyways. So I think it really worked out for her, and I think it really worked out for Curt.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's stick with the Sun though, and talk about a trade that went down where the Connecticut Sun sent Morgan Tuck to Seattle along with their 11th overall pick in the 2019 draft. And what did they get back? The 7th overall pick from Seattle in the 2019 draft. I tweeted this out from the personal account the moment that this trade went down and that the news was breaking on this. To me, it looks like a team doing the right thing by Morgan Tuck. Morgan Tuck was a high draft pick from this team. She came in with a lot of attention coming from UConn, and don't take this the wrong way, she never really lived up to the hype that she brought coming in. And part of me thinks that it's a good thing for her to get a fresh start. And also, considering how she ended the season in the playoffs, we were starting to finally see these flashes. I remember during the finals and during the playoffs, constantly tweeting or putting out there that this is the Morgan Tuck that we all expected, that we all kept seeing in her college career, and the one that we wanted to see in her W career. So it was great to see that playoff Morgan was definitely in mode. What are your thoughts on the trade?
Well, I actually think it's, God, Curt Miller's so good at PR, isn't he? So it does seem like something that's like a do good for the player, and in some ways it is, but really it's Curt Miller turning something out of nothing, because I don't think they were going to match we haven't seen the exact contract specs here. We know it's going to be for multiple years. An offer sheet has to be for multiple years, unless they could have signed her for 1 year. So actually, we don't know any of the details here, but he got something out of nothing, because they were not going to match. They were probably not going to match that Seattle offer sheet, and he turned that into getting 4 spots in the draft, and going up from 11-7 in the WNBA draft is a big deal. Kalani Brown was a 7th overall pick last year. So making that big move up from a player that you're probably going to cut to a player that could actually contribute in the draft is an unbelievable move to me, especially for someone that you were probably not going to keep regardless. So for me, great job by Curt Miller and his staff to get something out of nothing. For Seattle, I think it really helps their front court rotation and protects them against injury. And, she could probably keep their bigs healthier throughout the season, and especially with Brianna Stewart coming back from injury. And you don't want to have to rely on her so much to the point that she's going to get hurt again or just feel like that she needs to push herself. So Tuck gives them a little bit of insurance there and can really give them a lot of rest, really, going into the playoffs. So I love the move for both teams. I feel like we keep saying that. Like mostly the only team we've really criticized is Atlanta, and we're going to criticize someone in a second. But this move I think is good, although it could just turn out to be not much because Tuck may not contribute as much as we're thinking right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, what we're basing it off of, there was a sweet taste in our mouth, like I was saying, from the end of the season, when there was a few games where DC was just running all over Connecticut, and I saw Morgan Tuck really step up and really show us who we kind of wanted her to be. So amazing to hear that. Now, let's think about this. Layshia Clarendon goes to New York. And now my initial thoughts are, I was rebuked because if you know me, I've been down on Layshia a lot. I'm not a fan of her style. I know she has some youth or some uses to her. And she's an all-star. She's an Olympian. But for me, not my style. I don't see her fit on this roster. She got a 2-year guaranteed contract for $120 a year, I believe Howard put out there. So we can assume that it's somewhere around there. She's a smart player, but she's a facilitator. And I when I say that, I start to think, oh my God, Aryeh, you're literally going against what you've always said about this New York team, because you've always said they need someone to run and orchestrate this offense. They don't need a scorer or something like that. But I just don't like this move. I'll be blunt.
I'm kind of with you. I mean, I liked it until I really saw the terms. I mean, 2 years, $120,000 each year, and fully protected for a player coming off from ankle surgery who, she was very good in 2017. We cannot mention this. We cannot mention that Layshia Clarendon without bringing up 2017, because she was very good. She averaged 6.6 assists, 10 points. She's great on Atlanta. However, she is like this team's their fourth guard. She maybe is their third guard. I mean, we're counting Sabrina in here, obviously. So it may take another move after this. I like it from the perspective of getting veteran leadership, of getting someone who knows how to play in the WNBA, how the WNBA works, who can teach these young players, because I think New York's going to start going really young. Teach these young players how to play, and someone that, I think actually is going to work well with Tina Charles. But, I think it's an overpay. And I think she is not. I'm concerned about her injury status and coming back. Same things I said about Angel. But just, even if she's fully healthy, I'm not sure that she helps this team that much on the court. Off the court, I think she's going to be amazing. I think she's going to be great for this team and this franchise and the city. But on the court, I'm concerned about the fit. I'm concerned about her playing time, and I'm concerned about how much they're paying her. Because if they're paying her that much, I'm guessing she's going to be the backup point guard, and that she's going to take minutes away from someone that I really like. It would be that Asia Durr, Kia Nurse, Brittany Boyd, Marine Johannes. So, she's going to take minutes away from someone that I really like and can really grow with this team. So those are my concerns. But Layshia is an unbelievable person. So it's going to work out to a certain extent just because of the weight of who she is. But it is concerning with the years and the fact that it's fully protected.
Yeah, and like, let's just be real. I get it, because you have a lot of youth on this team, so maybe you want some veteran presence, but I don't want to go Stephen A on this. I'm too exhausted after this day. But yeah, not a fan of it. Let's talk about Dallas in kind of the last moves, and this is of 7:05 p.m. Eastern time. When we're recording this, the pod will be released tonight, so you'll be able to hear it. But yeah, just let's talk about Dallas. I mean, Dallas re-signed a multi-year contract for Mariah Jefferson and also Megan Gustafson. to a multi-year contract, along with signing Imani McGee-Stafford, Carly Samuelson, and Morgan Burst. Talk to me about your thoughts.
Yeah, so just as a quick like bookkeeping. So Amani's, I'm in my analysis piece, which is on Winsidr, which you should go read. I said Amani's contract and was a training camp contract. That is incorrect. We have been corrected. That is actually a normal contract. So she will be on the roster come the season, which is great because I think Amani McGee-Stafford is a very good center. I think she's someone who can provide you some good minutes off the bench. I hope she gets a little bit more. And I think she'll fit in with the team that's more that with this team going forward. But we'll see. We'll have to see how that works. But with Mariah Jefferson, they clearly see her as a part of this future, as a part of the future Wings contenders. They see her as, I'm not sure, they may be projecting her as the backup point guard with Aryeh and Alicia Gray starting, or they could start. She may actually be the starter going forward because Alicia Gray's contract is up after next year. So, it's going to be interesting to see the fit between her and Aryeh. Obviously, Aryeh is a star here. So anyone who doesn't fit with Aryeh has got to go. You're building around Aryeh. You're trying to get some other stars. You have the third or the second. They have the second overall pick, right?
Yeah.
So they have the second overall pick. So they're going to get someone good there too. I think it's just going to be interesting to see how Aryeh and Mo-Jeff fit and how that fit compares to Aryeh and Alicia Gray, who is coming up after next year, like I mentioned. And as far for Megan Gustafson, she has had a crazy career, huh? I mean, she got.
Can we just talk about how she went from being a training camp cut to signing a multi-year contract for the next season?
Well, and it wasn't like she quietly got cut. Like a lot of people get cut from the WNBA training camp. She got cut in an entire state, an entire corn-producing state was furious, was livid for months until she got back on that team. They were constantly berating the Dallas Wings for letting go of their superstar in their mind, and they were right. Because Megan came in, she gave them a lot of good minutes. She can play backup. She can play backup center. I think she projects as a center. She can give you a little bit of four. She seemed willing at least to shoot from deep, which is a good sign. Hopefully that can come along a little bit more because I'd like to see her be a little bit more versatile. But she just has a really good feel for the game. She knows where to be, and that is stuff you can't really teach. And seems like a great person too. A whole state can't love you that much without you being someone that people want to have in your locker room. So that those two multi-year signings were surprising to me, but they were. I think they're both going to end up being good signings. Carly Samuelson and Morgan Burst are coming in on training camp contracts, so they will not count against Dallas' salary cap until the first day of the regular season if they are there. I'd imagine Carly Samuelson's coming back. She gave them good minutes last year, and they could frankly use some depth there at the guard, especially with we have no idea what's happening with Taylor Hill, if she's healthy or not. But it is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, especially the Skylar Diggins-Smith trade, because we don't know what's happening on this roster until that trade happens, and then we'll be able to kind of slot people into here, and it also depends on the type of player that players that Dallas gets back from the Skylar Diggins-Smith trade. Because right now they're at it's not necessarily right. So I think they're at 11 players with Skylar on the roster because she has a cap hold right now. So that's really what we're waiting. We're waiting for Skylar Diggins-Smith to get traded, and when she does, we'll have a much, much better picture of what's happening in Dallas. But I will say this: they should not let go of Isabel Harrison. She played really well last year, and I think, I like Christina Nigwe. I like Megan Gustafson. I really like Lori Johnson, but Isabel Harrison can be your kind of swing rotation big of the future if you're Dallas. So we still have to reserve judgment until that Skylar Diggins-Smith trade happens.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, I think it's interesting because they th- need some keys or a big name on this roster. They obviously have, Aryeh, that's a big name. Mojef, that's a name, not a small name. Don't get me wrong, but it's interesting how they've essentially kept the same core of their bigs from last year. And it will definitely be interesting to see how the style of play that they do and kind of how they shift the rest of this roster to fit those bigs. Because I almost as much as I see them building around Mojef and Aryeh, which obviously they are, I do feel there's a huge part of me that says that it's actually in reverse, where it's we need players that are going to fit good with our bigs because they have those limitations of the bigs, but they also have a wide variety of styles of bigs. I mean, you
Yeah.
got Megan, Amani, and a multitude of other players who just fit a different variety of position at the bigs. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I don't think this roster is anywhere near being set.
Mm-hmm.
I expect to do a lot of movement. I expect to see a lot of motion in Dallas, a lot of wings flying around. It's going to be a fun free agency period. Any final thoughts on day one of the WNBA free agency signing period?
Well, do you want to do like quick winner and loser? We don't have that much time, but we could do a quick,
Yeah,
very
real
quick.
quick.
Okay. So, well, I guess our winner is going to be the same because we just talked about this the entire time. How the Sparks had an unbelievable day. Completely turned the narrative of their off season, which was probably unfair. Um, turned that around, turned it on its head. Got Chrissy Tolliver, got Brittany Sykes. They're looking like one of, if not the team to beat in the WNBA. So that's my winner. And then I'll give you, I think, my loser. I'm not going to say the Dream because they didn't really affect themselves that badly going forward. I think my loser is actually the Mystics. Losing Chrissy Tolliver is really big blow, not just to their product on the court, but to their culture. You talk to players around, you talked to that team last year, and they really, really loved Christy. They thought she was the soul of that team. They thought she was the person um, that kind of made them go and push them to new heights. So I think they're the big loser here.
Yeah, I agree with you, but because I don't want to agree with you on both points, obviously I think the Sparks are the winners. I do agree that the Mystics are definitely a loser. I'm going to look at it from a slightly different perspective. And if you look at the New York Liberty over the past few years during the Katie Smith era, there was almost like an embargo on them doing any like any signings during free agency. It was like, just bring back the same old players. So I do like the fact that they're going out and getting some new names. I just don't like the signing. And for me, no move is better than a bad move. And so I just view it as I question that move, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, like we say with anything, there's going to be some time to reflect, and then we'll revisit it a little bit down the road. But my loser is going to be the New York Liberty. Sorry, New York fans. Yeah, that's all I got. Well, as we always say, we believe the players of the W and its community deserve the same in-depth analysis and respect that men's sports receive on a daily basis. With that in mind, please consider joining our Patreon community to help to support us and the hard work that we do.